Yeah.
You mentioned God, you mentioned, country, constitution. I feel as if our country has pulled away,
Oh yeah.
from all of it, and we have veteran suicide in this country that's at an all-time high. And what I've said before, and I'll say it again, is like every single time a veteran takes their own life, it reduces the patriotism in this country. And you have all these great, men and women who have sacrificed so much for this great nation. And again, they are patriotic people. They love their country. And then when they remove themselves from this walk in life, our patriotism in this country sinks and it sinks and it sinks while it's being replaced by a lot of people that are coming in with no allegiance to this country. Now, I see that as a major problem, veteran suicide. And I wanted to bring that up because you would be unseating a veteran, a U.S. Navy SEAL. And there's a lot of veterans in this district. How would you help the veteran community of the 2nd Congressional District here in Texas?
Well, so I can tell you this, and it wouldn't just be helping the veteran community in the 2nd Congressional District. This would be helping the veteran community all over Texas and all over the United States of America. So first and foremost, I would not vote to pass the National Defense Authorization Act with red flag laws that were slapped on veterans, which is honestly, it's actually what my opponent did, and he'll deny it. But I mean, I can pull up the legislation, I can pull up the yay vote. That honestly kind of threw me for a loop. But let's talk about why there are people who believe that red flag laws need to be slapped on veterans. So we talk about mental health a lot in this country, and there's a saying that it's okay to not be okay. And we do that to try to destigmatize PTSD, to destigmatize trauma, to destigmatize mental health issues. The problem is it's almost like entrapment, because I know right now you go into the VA and you talk with a counselor there and you both start and you buy into the it's okay to not be okay. Your name is going to be flagged, red flag, and it's going to go into a federal database. That's not what our veterans need. First and foremost, our veterans are veterans of either Air Force, Marines, Army, Navy, Coast Guard, you name it. They signed on the dotted line and stated, I'm willing, if need be, to give my life to serve this country and to preserve this thing that we call liberty and keep the torch of liberty ablaze.
Mm-hmm.
But yet, they are the first to have their constitutional rights and liberties stripped. That bugs me. Absolutely bugs me. So we need to fix that. But here's the other thing that I want. I also am very well aware that right now in the VA, and I also know that this depends on your classification, right? So if I know from I've talked with veterans, not just all over the district, all over the greater Houston area, all over the state of Texas. There are different classifications of veterans. You have a hero class, and you talk to those hero class, whether they're paratroopers, whether they were special forces or special operations. You talk to that hero class and they're like, man, the VA's great. I never have any issues. But then you talk to those that aren't in that hero class. And I know a lot on both sides. You talk to those that aren't in that hero class. They're struggling to get seen by a doctor. They're having those red flag laws that are slapped on them. When I say red flag laws, I'm not just talking about gun confiscation. They have these red flags. Not only that, but then we talk about the veteran suicide. We need to make available treatments that are not putting drugs in their body where you have to deal with all of these like various side effects, which then require more drugs that have more side effects that require more drugs that have more side effects. Natural solutions like neurofeedback therapy, which literally rewrites and resets the neural pathways in your brain. And we've seen the studies. And it's a night and day difference whenever you have veterans dealing with trauma, PTSD, so that's the kind of therapy. It's natural. And that's the kind of therapy that I want to see, and the kind of care that I want to see veterans have access to.
Sure. Alternative medicine is a big talking point right now. You've got, DMT, you've got psychedelics, you've got, the use of, CBD and CBD products and all the different cannabinoids that can be found at the plant, if you will. And to touch on a point, it's okay to not be okay. Yeah, I agree with you there, because it's not. Unfortunately, with everything I went through in my struggle with the VA, I get a lot of emails and a lot of calls and text messages from veterans from across the country, and I hear all the bad. I know that there is some good going on in the VA, but I don't hear any of the good. I only hear the bad stuff. I get all the negative stuff. This is everything that's wrong with the VA. So I'm a guy that can sit down with a member of the VA committee or the subcommittee on health, or any really congressional member, and tell them everything that's wrong, and how we could perhaps make it a better place, and perhaps a better experience for the veteran community. And a lot of what I hear is veterans are losing their jobs. They're losing their pilot's license. They're being taken off the police force. They're no longer needed at their place of employment where they may have a clearance, because they may be taking an anxiety medicine. It doesn't, because you have post-traumatic stress, doesn't mean that you're not fit to do your job at a very high level. It just means that you've been through some stuff and you've seen some stuff, and it was a traumatic type event, and you're working through it, and you're a living and walking example of what healing looks like. But because it's in your medical record, people look at that and they say, that's a reason for termination, so we're going to let him or her go. And I tell you what, that's a big problem right there, because you're stripping the livelihoods of folks, a small population of people. And because of the veteran community, it is only 20 million of this country. We have 20 million. At any one time, we have less than 1% of the population is actually serving in the military right now. And these folks have signed that blank check, payable to the United States of America for up to and including their life. For what? To uphold and defend the Constitution of the United States of America. And this is a very vulnerable and at-risk community. And it seems as if this community that has done everything for this country is getting the shaft almost at every direction they look at. That's why there's so many 501c3s out there trying to help the veteran community. It's called Veterans Helping Veterans, because a lot of the times they can't rely on the government to do it, because they're going to be put in a line. They can't get the medical attention they need. Their claims are being denied because of, BS reasons. And that leads to a really bad place for a lot of these veterans. And so it is critical that if you are elected as a member of Congress, that you sit down with folks like me and other veteran advocates in this community and in this district, and really find out what the wants and what the needs are, and start to structure this to where, okay, we need to fix this. Maybe we could be a satellite area. Maybe we can do a lot of research here and a lot of development, and really find out what works, and be a leader on a national level. The Houston VA is one of the largest VAs in the country. Plus, right here, we are, Houston is the home of, is the medical hub of the world. So I think that there's a lot of, research and development that can go on here. Plus, there's so many veterans in Texas, let alone right here in Montgomery County and North Harris County. So the VA and veterans would be something that I think that you would have to really take a big stand on.
Oh yeah. And here's something that I actually want to ask you, Brian. So we have this invasion going on at our southern border. 8 million illegals since Biden took office and Mayorkas was appointed. And I get word, I think it was the beginning of December. I get word that the VA stops servicing veterans to go and process illegals at the border. What are your thoughts about that?
I'll tell you what happened about that, because I was actually interviewed on a national station with Jeff Katz last year on this. So what happened was this: you have all the VAs from across the country. They didn't just stop servicing veterans. What happened was they had set up some field hospitals down on the border, and I think they still do, because that is the federal government's hospital. That is, if you were a member of Congress or the president, whatever, you go to Walter Reed. If you're a veteran, you go to your local VAs or the VA hospitals. So first off, definitely completely disagree with sending the VA down to the border to take care of people that have never contributed to this country. So right there, a lot of veterans were taken back. What did happen was, when they pull from these hospitals, they're pulling doctors and clinicians from all over the country, which is reducing the staff, which increases wait times. When you have increased wait times, now you're getting delayed and denied care. You're getting pushed away. A lot of medical malpractice can ensue. You never know. Death could happen. You're not getting those tests. There's a lot of equations that can go into this problem that can make it a really bad scenario for a lot of veterans. And plus, a lot of veterans don't have family. A lot of veterans are living on the street. This is vulnerable. The veteran community, people got to understand, it's a vulnerable and at-risk community. Yeah, there's great veterans out there, and there's veterans that are kicking life's butt and all that stuff. I'm not talking about them. I'm talking about a large group of veterans, who, have, suicidal ideation. And it's really sad and it's scary, but it's real and it's raw. And it's stuff that we need to make ourselves vulnerable on, and to have a civil discussion on how can we try to help those people out there that don't want the help, and that's the sad thing. You look back on it, I know so many veterans that have been through hell and back, and they're glad now that they got the help that they needed, and they're living a life of success again and fulfillment, and it feels good, but they almost didn't make it. They didn't want to be helped, but somebody took their hand and said, "You're coming with me, and we're gonna help you." And now they thank God every single day for that person, or for that moment, or for that godly calling that woke them up one day, that to where they got up and out of that chair and started to make themselves 1% better every single day, to live the life that they were intended to live.
That's awesome.
And that's what it takes in the veteran community. Again, veterans helping veterans, not going into a counselor and having them sit down and say, "Okay, well, you've checked all these boxes here, so we're going to give you all these meds. Oh, and we're going to put you on the, you can't buy a gun list and all that other stuff. We're going to take away, your rights that you've upheld and defended for, X, Y, and Z years." And again, the more you contribute, the more you're punished. And that is not fair. That is a bad way to do business. And so that leads me into the next question here. The military. Well, they're having a hard time recruiting right now. And I'll tell you why. Kids aren't dumb. They see their parents and their uncles and their brothers and sisters going through a lot of struggles while they're serving in the military. The military leadership that I've seen displayed on public display from the botched Afghanistan withdrawal to the defense secretary spending time in the ICU and no one knows about it, doesn't call in sick to work, like one of the most powerful men in the world. And You know, there's just a lack of leadership out there, and I hear it from a lot of people. It's not just a few people that tell me. I hear what's going on in and around the military, and it's not, it's not what it used to be. But okay, yeah, you're an old head. You know, it's always better back then, or we're always tougher back then. It's no, this is different. There's stuff it just doesn't feel right. It's not fitting right. We have lowered standards, and we're putting ourselves into scenarios that we've never done before. And we're also running. We're cutting and running, and we're paying. It just doesn't make any sense anymore. A lot of the stuff that's going on, and then they get out, and then they go to the VA, and then they have all these problems and all these issues. And the people are like, "Oh, I don't want that in my life. I don't want to do that." And so they don't join. And so what happens? Again, that patriotism starts to sink lower and lower. They go to college, and we end up forming this like one world type, mentality and government. And before you know it, this Constitution doesn't mean anything, and it's being run amok and dragged through the mud, and it doesn't really matter anymore.
Yeah, it does not help that we're teaching our kids that racist is bigoted, homophobic, racist, bigoted, homophobic. Like we're literally raising up our kids to hate America. And I'm
not raising my kids to hate America. I'm raising my kids to love America.
Come on. But that plays a big part. That plays a big part into it, which is why I'm a big supporter of school choice without the strings attached. I want unregulated school choice, but parents need to have the rights and the freedom to be able to choose where to send their kids to school, so that we can start shifting this whole DEI and the CRT and all of that out of our schools, make those schools go bankrupt, so that we can start teaching our kids once again to love and serve God, country, and family. If we start doing that, the patriotism will start to go up with this next generation. We start to remind this up and coming generation of who they are, their identity as Americans, because we have a huge identity problem right now in this country. And people are looking for their identity. They're looking for truth. And the problem is, and there's a story that goes with this if you want me to share it, but the problem is that a lot of this older patriotic generation, they can't figure out how to pass the torch of liberty on to the next generation. And what did Reagan say? That freedom is only ever one generation away from extinction. And that's literally what we're seeing right now, unfortunately. Mm-hmm. And that 100%, don't think for a second that doesn't impact the amount of recruiting going on into our military. Just think back to 9/11. Think back to just after 9/11. That inspired so much patriotism. We saw such a surge in recruitment into our armed forces.
Mm-hmm.
It was crazy. Now, unfortunately, they also used our patriotism against us and passed something called the Patriot Act, which was very unpatriotic and very unconstitutional. But right after 9/11, that surge of patriotism, that's what we need to get back to.
This is the Today with Tally podcast.